Ancient China has always been a fascinating setting for me when it comes to games. Outside of the more well-known Three Kingdoms period, there's a lot of potential for games set before and even after it, or even in a fictional time period, which is where today's game comes in. Meet Wandering Sword, a Chinese RPG with wuxia elements developed by the Swordsman Studio based in Shanghai, China. The game employs an HD 2D style popularised by Square Enix in games such as Octopath Traveler, the Dragon Quest 1-3 remakes, and Triangle Strategy, to name a few. The game employs turn-based battles, but you do have the option to select the more chaotic real-time battle option and freely switch between the two outside of battles. This review will cover the game including the Southern Chronicles update, Echoes of Ash and Dust update, as well as the Secrets of the Eastern Sea and Heroes Adventure Collaboration DLC. There will be some late game footage shown out of context, and some minor spoilers regarding an optional character. Before we continue, just as a little bit of housekeeping here, I will apologise in advance for any mispronunciations of names, places and terms because there's a chance that I'll butcher it. Characters are named in the game using their family name first and given name last. Wandering Sword is set in a fictional version of China combining elements of the Song Dynasty, Yuan Dynasty and Ming Dynasty, the late 1200s to late 1300s. This game has called this fictional age the Ning Dynasty, with Wandering Sword taking place towards the end of it, where the Ning forces are threatened by the Yuan forces in the north, heavily inspired by the Mongol-led forces which led to the Yuan Dynasty. In this era, you play as a young man named Yuwen Yi, who is escorting a client through the Valley of Dragon Slumber alongside his friends. As they stop for a break, some members of the Tianlong gang pass through, knocking Yi over. Not wanting to start a fight, Yi tries to defuse the situation before another group from the Xuanhao cult confront them. Tianlong gang launch an ambush of poisoned arrows which kill Yi's friends and seriously poisons him. The client, who then turns out to be one of the heads of the Wudang sect in the Central Plains, reveals himself and quickly takes out the members of the Tianlong gang, though their leader has the last laugh by destroying the antidote to the poison. The Wudang head decides to leave Li with an old acquaintance and his daughter. As Yi recovers, he begins to learn martial arts, and after his mentor sacrifices himself and his daughter is taken away, this begins a long journey where he seeks to become stronger so he can protect his friends and the innocent, pursue his own sense of justice, and to rescue and take care of his mentor's daughter as he promised him. Yi will journey throughout China, having companions join him along the way while also facing off against deadly enemies and creatures. But is the game any good? Find out in The Good. I'm a sucker for the HD 2D visual style and aesthetics, and this game makes excellent use of it to show the different areas of China as you go through all the different locations in game, and even some places at different times of the day, though you'll be mostly travelling through the daytime unless it's a specific event. The overworld, map and battle screens all use this style to great effect, and while I think the game can be a little heavy on the blur at times, the attention to detail, the bustling cities with NPCs walking around and the variety of places you can go makes this game an absolute treat on the eyes. The game's character art, whether it be for your party members, important characters or even the random NPCs that you can talk to, look really well illustrated, and some characters even get revised artwork as they change costumes throughout the game's story and DLC, and the new artwork compared to the old is night and day in comparison. I was a big fan of the game's visual style and artwork, and it was one of the first things that initially drew me to it. The game's sense of progression and pacing I think was also handled very well. As Yi journeys through China, he'll learn different weapon skills, be able to forge new weapons, cook dishes, tailor clothes and make medicines. Yi and his companions will also have the ability to learn cultivation skills, which when leveled up will grant Yi and his companions meridian points which they can then invest to raise their stats, as well as grant additional effects. For added context, meridians are pathways through the body in which chi flows. When you start the game, Yi is relatively weak, and even an early quest in the game such as hunting boars with one of your friends can be potentially lethal. While you don't get access to certain parts of the world until later on in the story, there is a lot of freedom to explore the area you're in, and quite often you will stumble across areas where enemies are far too powerful for you and your party. When you get to the midpoint of the game, your characters start to feel a lot stronger, but you're in that mindset that there will always be a stronger opponent out there. In the last parts of the game, if you've gone out of your way to do as much as you can, you will feel like you're almost invincible. The game also encourages you to use and train the members of your party, since with the new updates and DLC, there has been an emphasis on how important certain characters are in your party, and there will be situations where you will only have access to those certain members, or having to fight your enemies without Yi. You can also gift items to your companions and NPCs, and by raising your friendship levels, you can ask to learn new skills from your party members, invite them to the party, or if you've noticed that they have an item that you want in their inventory, you can spar with them for a chance to get it. Thankfully, you can spar with characters as many times as you want until you get it, and you'll gain martial points to level up your weapon, lightness and cultivation skills too, so that's an added bonus. I also enjoyed the game's story. Now that we've had the Southern Chronicles and Echoes of Ash and Dust updates, the game feels more complete. The Southern Chronicles update expands on the original story, and allows some of Yi's companions to have their say on things if they happen to be in the party, as this can affect some dialogue or outcomes of certain events. Even with the addition of the Secrets of the Eastern Sea DLC, the companion you get from that gets some dialogue in the main story too, which is pretty neat, while the events of the DLC can be tackled pretty much any time after a certain point in the game, and doesn't affect the overall story in a major sense. The DLC takes place on a set of islands off the east coast, and introduces a new weapon style categorised as a subset of the fist fighting style, and further expands on the history for a couple of other characters in your party, as well as providing you with new outfits for them. The DLC also introduces a gathering mechanic, which will enable you to gather materials from any fast travel point after a certain amount of time has passed, making material gathering for forging, alchemy, tailoring and cooking significantly easier, as well as for side quests. The Hero's Adventure Collaboration DLC introduces a couple of temporary characters who will join your party, some new side story content, cultivation and weapon skills, as well as a new outfit for a certain character if she's in your party too. The Echoes of Ash and Dust update expands further on the story by allowing you to know what happens to the characters in your party after the end of the game in a where are they now sense, which, given the sheer amount of companions that can join your party, is a pretty big task in itself. Echoes of Ash and Dust's story can also be affected by how things went in the Southern Chronicles, which can ultimately affect the game's ending. The additional content that it brings also changes up the events leading to the end of the game compared to the Legacy release. And while I could see a lot of the plot points from a mile away, there were a few twists that still caught me by surprise, which was a pleasant surprise. The game has a new Game Plus mode in a sense too. Depending on what you did throughout the game, you'll gain inheritance points which you can spend so you can start off stronger on a new playthrough, whether you want to give them a better fighting chance, or even just outright break the game with how absurdly strong you can get. As good as the game is though, it's not without its faults, and we'll look at those in the bad. If you're planning to be a completionist in the game and get everything, you will most likely need a guide. There are some very specific choices you need to make that can affect events much later in the game, and even character endings or whether they live or die, and some of those requirements may have you completely disregarding your current main or side objective. You can even lock yourself out of it if you didn't talk to a certain character at a certain place during a certain event, as their friendship level might not be high enough for you to invite them to the party, or for an event to trigger, which can really suck too. For example, one of your party members, a man named Baijin, will have a side story available when you gain access to the northern part of the map, and when you go there to fulfill your promise of showing him around the area, things happen where you're given the option of doing two different tasks. Baijin will discourage you from doing one of them, telling you that you should do the other, and that he will wander around the northern area himself to see the sights. The objective will tell you to do what Baijin suggested, but what you're really supposed to do is completely go against it and do the complete opposite, which would give you the best possible outcome for that side story. Even in the main story, while Yi has endings that allow him to get closer to certain characters in the game, you can completely lock yourself out of some of those events if you didn't do particular things at certain points of the story and simply followed the objective. While the Baijin example was a more obvious one, I think there should have been more subtle hints to maybe prompt you to go down a different path, since sometimes if you do decide to do something different because you thought it might make sense in your head, The game might simply stop you from leaving an area or accessing an area. When I completed my playthrough, I had thought that I had done everything you could possibly do in the game by completing all the side missions I came across. But it turns out there was a lot of stuff I missed just because I didn't go to a certain place during a main mission, or checked a building in a place that I had visited at an earlier point in the game. Don't get me wrong, the story and content of the game is great, but it can be really hyper-specific on what you need to do in order to get the best possible outcome for everyone, and doesn't really elaborate on it too well. The game's user interface, or UI if you're playing using a controller, is an absolute mess. Assuming you are using an Xbox controller for the sake of this review, though this also applies to a PlayStation controller, to access the menus in the top right, you need to press the right trigger, which highlights the options there. And if you're going to, let's say, equip an item to a character or check what it does, it's a mission in itself to navigate through your characters, rearrange your active party, and the characters that follow you on the map. They can be different to your battle party, their stats, their currently equipped items, and then the items in your inventory. It's also just as bad spending points on updating their skills and meridians and navigating your way through that too. Back to the inventory for a moment, you will be getting a lot of items in the game and they will clog up your inventory, and if you are like me and not bothered to start selling things until late game, you'll be having a fun time trying to sell your unwanted stuff, and I'm using the term fun very loosely here. While this was enough to be a minor inconvenience through my time with the game, it was something I ultimately put up with and I eventually got used to it. Other than that, there's nothing else I need to complain about, so let's wrap things up with the opinion. There was a lot of work and care put into Wandering Sword and I really enjoyed my time with the game. I liked the visual style and presentation, the sense of progression and pacing which I think struck the right balance, and the game's story made better with various updates and DLC over the past couple of years since its launch. While the game can be very hyper-specific if you intend to be a completionist and get the best possible outcome for everything, and the UI is a mess to navigate, there was still enough content that it took me just under 70 hours to beat, and here's hoping that the PlayStation 5, Switch and Switch 2 release in 2026 will at least address the UI issue. The console ports are also getting Chinese and Japanese voice acting, and I'm looking forward to replaying the game with voices as that adds a whole new feel to it. If you enjoy RPGs, especially ones in the HD 2D visual style, and if the Wuxia or Chinese settings interests you, then definitely give this game a go. I was pleasantly surprised with what I got out of the game, and absolutely had a blast with it. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Wandering Sword, Yi riding on this giant scorpion, out of 10. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to like, comment and subscribe for more. You can check out our other videos or follow us on X, Instagram and Facebook. Once again, thank you for watching.